Hey children, this is your English teacher, Mr. Andrew, and in today's lesson, we are going to look into the present simple tense. Today, we are going to learn when to use the present simple tense and learn how to make sentences with them. Okay, before we start, let's do a quick recap. What do you guys remember about tense? Well, in our previous lesson, we learned that tense tells us when an action or verb happens. Okay, so how do we form the present simple? It is very easy. You take a subject and you add a verb. A subject tells us who or what the sentence is about. A subject is a word like I, you, we, they, he, she, it, or a name of people, places, ideas, or things. Let's take I for now, and let's take a verb, eat. Let's add in more details so the sentence sounds more meaningful. I eat bread every morning. What does this sentence mean? Now, when I say I eat bread every morning, it means I do it on a regular basis. Now you see a timeline on your screen. On the far left is the past. In the middle is the now or the present. And on the other side, it is the future. So you know that I eat bread every morning on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and so on. So you can see that this action repeats. This is a habit. So this sentence shows us the first use of the present simple tense, that is talking about habits and routines, things that we do regularly or repeatedly. Here are more examples. Hakim goes to the mosque on Fridays. Again, this is what Hakim does regularly every Friday. So it is a routine. In our next example, the baby always cries at night, meaning it is something that happens every night. Okay? Notice that in sentence number 2 and number 3, we add s or es to the verb. Why is that? Now, let's take a look at this table. Notice that we use the base form of the verb when the subject is I, you, we, they, or any other plural nouns. And when the subject is he, she, it, or other singular nouns, we add s or es to the verb. Now let's move on to the next example of when we use the present simple tense. Now, the second use of the present simple is to talk about permanent situations and facts. What do I mean by permanent situations? Let's take a look at this example. So, I have a brother, and my brother lives in Johor. Now, when I say that he lives in Johor, is it a holiday? Is it only for a short while? No, it means he lives there permanently. He's staying there for the long term. Okay, so you can see this on the timeline. Again, there's the past, present, and future. So maybe my brother started living in Johor at some point in the past, but it is his home now. So here we are talking about something that is not going to change. So we say it is permanent. Here's another example. Alia speaks Bahasa Melayu. Obviously, Alia is not going to forget how to speak Bahasa Melayu. So it is a permanent situation. Now, what about facts? What are facts? Facts are truths. They are statements about the world that are true. For example, the sun rises in the east. This is something that has always been true, and it is something that is never going to change unless the world is coming to an end, of course. Here is another example. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Again, this is a scientific fact, so we use the present simple. Now, what are other uses of? Now, the third use of the present simple is for timetables and schedules. For example, I can say my wife's plane arrives at 5 o'clock. Now, I already know that this is going to happen at a specific time in the future, so it is in a schedule. In Bahasa Melayu, a schedule means jadual. So we can use the present simple. Here is another example. Our English class starts at noon. So our English class is part of our school timetable, and we know what time it will start. It will start at 12 noon. So we use the present simple. Here is another example. The train leaves at midnight. Again, the train has a schedule or a jadwal that it has to follow. So we use the present simple. Now, the last use of the present simple is for reviews and sports commentaries. For example, when I'm making a review of a novel, I might say, in this novel, the girl becomes famous. Now, we all know that usually a novel is about something that has already happened. It is a story, and we would normally use the past tense. But when we are making a review, we are talking about the novel to somebody, we will usually use the present simple because we are talking as if the thing is happening right in front of our eyes as we speak, happening right now. Okay? Now, the same thing when we are talking about a movie that we have just seen. For example, this movie shows the life of the rich and famous. We will use the present simple because we are talking about it as if the movie is happening right in front of us. And the last use is for sports commentaries. Okay? So when you watch a football game, for example, there will normally be an announcer who comments on what is happening to make it more interesting. So the commentator might say something like this: Mo Salah scores a hat trick for Liverpool. A hat trick means 3 goals. Okay? Liverpool is actually a very famous club in England. All right? So when we are doing sports commentaries, we would use the present simple. Now, notice again that we add s to all the verbs in these examples. Does anyone remember why? Why do we add s to all the verbs in all these examples? Very good. We have written them with s because they are all singular. Okay, all the subject in the sentences that we have used above are all singular. To remind you guys, let's look at this table again. V1 is the base form of the verb. We use it with the subject I, you, we, they, or any other plural nouns. And we use the V or SES form when the subject is he, she, it, or any other singular nouns. Okay. Now, let's take a look at how we form sentences with the present simple. We will start with the affirmative sentence, or rather positive sentence. So here is the structure of a simple sentence. We will start with the subject, and then we add in the verb. The verb can be in V1 or VSES form, depending on the subject, and we add the object to make the sentence more meaningful. Okay, so here are some examples. We play football every day. Hakim plays football every day. In the first example, the verb is in the V1 or base form because the subject is plural. In the second example, the verb is in VSES form because the subject is singular. All right. Now, how do we form negative sentences? We take a subject and we add the verb do or does. Then we add the word not, followed by verb in the base form or the V1 form, and then lastly we add the object. Here are the examples. We do not play football every day. Hakim does not play football every day. Notice here that the verb in negative sentence is always in the base form. The only thing that changes is the verb do. Now, we use do when the subject is plural, and we use does when the subject is singular. Pay attention here that for plural we use do not, and we can actually use the contraction of don't. And for singular subject, we use the verb does not, and we can use the contraction of doesn't. Okay. Let's take a look at how we form yes-no questions with the present simple. We start with the verb do or does, followed by the subject, then we add the verb and the object. Here are the examples. Do they play football every day? Does Hakim play football every day? Notice that again, as with the negative sentences, the verb is always in the base form. However, the verb do or does will follow the subject which comes after it. If the subject is singular, he, she, or it, we use does. And when the subject is plural, I, you, we, they, we use the verb do. Next, we will take a look at how we form the short answers to the questions we have formed above. For positive answers, we answer with the word yes, followed by the subject and the verb do or does. For example, I might answer, yes, they do. And yes, he does. For negative answers, we start with a no, followed by the subject and the verb don't or doesn't, which stands for do not or does not. For example, no, I don't. No, she doesn't. Or no, he doesn't. Finally, let's take a look at how we form longer questions, the WH questions. Now, we call it the WH questions because we start with the WH words, and then we add in the verb do or does, followed by the subject. Then we add the verb in the base form and the object. Now, do you remember the WH words that you have learned before? What are some of the words that you can remember? Very good. Here is a list of WH words. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now you can remember them easily as the 5 wives and the 1 husband. Of course, there are more WH words, but we will not be covering them today. So let's take a look at some examples of how we form WH questions with this structure. What do they play every day? When does Hakim play football? Notice that in these 2 sentences, the main verb play does not change form. It is always in the V1 or the base form. The only thing that changes is the verb do. When the subject is they or plural, as in the first example, we use the verb do. When the subject is singular, as in the second example, Hakim, we use the verb does. Let's take a look at other examples. How much does the pizza cost? How many siblings do you have? And how often do they play? And that's the end of our lesson today. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below and I will answer them as soon as I can. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. See you again in the next lesson. Bye.